Hey everyone, welcome in. Betsperts Golf here for our first look at the American Express at PGA West coming off of the Aloha swing. We are making our way east to California, Coachella Valley, coming off of a nice 150 to 1 long shot call by my guy here, Ron Kloss, PGA Splits 101. What's going on, buddy? Nice hit.
Hey, yeah, Nick Taylor's a guy who, as everybody knows, he's just a playoff giant. But he's a guy who's just, saw him sitting there, and he brings a lot of win equity to the table. And he's one of those guys who, when he gets it going. And I know people pointed to the fact that he had been struggling recently, and I just think warming up at the Century, a course that kind of did fit his style of play. I just think that was something I had to jump on. So, it's always great when you hit anything over. I mean, any winners, it's just fabulous. But when you hit anything over 100 to 1, that's something that doesn't come around too often. So, and I think this week again, we've got some chances this week where, you look at a guy like, Nick Dunlap winning last year, amateur, 300 to 1. I think the average winning odds here have been 137 to 1 over the last 13 years. So, I think there's some real good value if you look down the board here that I've already fired on. I'm in our member Discord. So again, if you're not in there yet, get in that Discord, and hopefully we can get another one this week. Hey, can you hear me now? Yeah. So, sorry, I can't hear anything. So this is basically a track meet on a golf course. So, this is, we've got three courses this week that are very similar. Every single one is short. They're all under 7,200 yards. We have Poetry Valley Greens for the first time this year as well. So, we've got the three courses: Pete Dye Stadium course, the Nicholas Tournament course. We have La Quinta Country Club. Pretty much last year, all three of those were among the top 5 easiest courses on tour. We have very low scoring rounds pretty much every day. And so this week, a little different. Obviously, we have a 54-hole cut, and players are going to tee off on those courses the first 3 rounds, and then the final round is going to be on the Pete Dye Stadium course. So that is kind of the structure for this week. Another part of this is players will be playing a pro-am for the first 3 rounds, which can take, we have literally 6-hour rounds at times. So a lot of players do not like that part of it, and that's why you see some players who kind of refuse to play here. But yeah, this is a kind of a setup where many, it is on the tougher side to bet just because of the structure. You really don't have any weather concerns here because winds are calm. You have clear skies in a desert environment, and so this tournament is kind of as close to dome golf as players will experience all year. And so those are kind of the things that players just have to take advantage of as far as scoreable par fives. Every course is under 7,200 yards, and so for me this week, It's pretty much a wedge to short irons, and it is a birdie fest. Like I said at the start, it's basically a track meet on a golf course. Who can get to 30 under? Probably again this year. I think Dunlop got to 29 under last year. So, yeah, those are kind of some of the main things that I'll be looking for this week.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to my mic, but I think it was my mic. So can you hear me now?
I can hear you perfectly clear now.
Okay. We got the intro out. You and I were talking beforehand. I'm like, what is going on? But yeah, sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, but Ron, like you said, tough one to handicap too, because we are dealing with the 3-course rotation, limited data on a couple of the courses. The Pro-Am element is such a wild card with these extended long rounds is not for everyone. But, the guys that typically come back year after year, I feel like they are probably okay with it. Patrick Cantley's okay with a 6-hour round. He's doing his best to do that anyway. So, some of the guys that continue to come back, there could be some of that. So, yeah, a place where wouldn't be afraid to go deep down the board, as Ron touched on there as well. So you can take a look here. We'll pop up on the screen. Opening odds, 2 for you guys to take a look at. You can shop around, obviously, just looking at FanDuel here to get started. Xander comes here every year. Often in the mix, but obviously you got to pay the freight. 7-1. Justin Thomas in the mix a little bit here last year. Here at 12. Sanjay, I think Sanjay has 6 straight top 20s here, but 1 top 10. So never really threatening the top of the board, but he's always in the mix here. So Sanjay at 14, Cantley dropping down a little bit. Burns was in the mix last year. Went in the water late, opening the door for Nick Dunlap to walk through it there. Rest of a great tournament for Sam Burns, playing pretty well. Finau, Kim, Wyndham Clark. You can see Siwoo here, a winner in the past. Gracerman, JJ Spawn. The answer is never JJ Spawn. Not surprised to see JJ shrink a little bit under the pressure. Yesterday, again, great ball striker. Historically, a pretty terrible putter, and that caught up to him a little bit yesterday. Now you're paying the recent form freight here at 40 for JJ Spawn. Harry Hall continue to play good golf. Kitayama, Cam Young, Davis Thompson, and your defending champ Nick Dunlap kind of rounding out the form. Everyone loves Eric Cole. Yeah, so this is kind of our threshold of where we start to see, drop down here. But a decent field, all things considered, for one of the events that I don't like on the PGA Tour rotation every year. Again, Ron said before the show, beautiful place, love to golf there. But in terms of betting events, it's not my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, it's like last year was the best field ever at this event, and this year, you have 9 top 25 of the top 25 in the world here, and yeah, there's some definite course history, even though it's not as sticky because of how generic these courses are and how easy they are. But I mean, you got a guy like Adam Hadwin. I don't know if people have actually taken a deep dive yet into his history here, but 5 top 6s. In the last since 2016, and then if you just broaden that out, he's never finished worse than 32nd here, and so even a guy like Davis Thompson, who, he's a guy I love this week, who's kind of struggled a little bit to start the year, but he finished second here, obviously when Rahm won in 23, 21st again last year. So yeah, there's you look on down the board, there's some guys in that kind of even if you go down further, the 70 to 100 range where I think some guys who can score. And so some guys I'll be looking at this week for sure.
Yeah. Unique week for the cheat sheets and the course history because of, or the tournament cheat sheet stuff, because again, we're dealing with the 3-course rotation and no shot link data for some of it too. So, but again, I think to Ron's point with how he was talking about the course preview in the rabbit hole, I think it's a great week where you still dig into understanding whether it's corollary courses or really what the demand of the track is in terms of, easy scoring, putting, shorter golf courses, stuff like that. Still a great week to dig into the data and get the ability to separate a little bit.
And one thing really quick I forgot to mention off the top is they did redo the greens at the stadium course this year, the Pete Dye course. And so they've always been really small, 5,000 square feet. And that's one of the things that made them, somewhat challenging. But they redid the greens, kind of trying to take it back to Pete Dye's original design in 1986. And so he actually had the greens much larger then. And so they're actually 7,000 square feet on average now. But kind of what's going to possibly make them more challenging is, first of all, whenever you have new greens, it's always going to be firmer that first year.
For
So
sure.
they're also going to have a lot more new pin placements that are possible. So some of the greens, as far as hole locations, are going to be much different than players are used to. So maybe adding, hopefully, a little more difficulty to at least those 2 rounds on that course.
Yep. No, it's a good call out. Obviously, greens that are brand new just don't have the wear and tear. They don't have the sand build up, especially a place like this that has a lot of bunkering. They're going to be probably a little bit more firm and fast. It's going to matter a little bit less than it would on some courses because you're going to have, lofted wedges versus, longer irons to hold in. But from a distance standpoint, there could be some situations where those guys that have more distance, say from 200 plus, will benefit because they'll still have a higher lofted club than, say, a Brian Harmon or someone with, a little lacking distance. So definitely a good call out there too. All right. Let's dig in a little bit. Let's take a look at, what do you think? Just, easy courses here. We should kind of deep dive and see who's played well and when we need to get to almost 30, basically.
Yeah, like I said, all 3 of these courses are very similar in structure. So definitely birdie fest. So easy, very easy. I know some of our top players like Xander Schauffele has not played many very easy courses. So another reason why you should include easy in your searches, just so you get a little more sample size.
Yeah, good call for sure, especially the top tier guys. Then again, what you're really trying to do there is rule out the standard PGA Tour track or anything that would be difficult. We wouldn't want that in the sample. So last 12 months, most of the guys here, are getting a decent sample. It's really hard to put a minimum rounds feature on early, especially in like events like this, because you're getting those PGA Tour, or, PGA U grads or Korn Ferry guys. Like, we're going to completely rule them out of the data set, which is really tough. So it's a struggle. So going in and actually looking at the results here, I think makes a ton of sense versus, just blindly putting a round thing in. Because again, these guys aren't going to have anything. You don't want them to massively mess up your data set. But it's just a challenge early in the season, especially in these weaker field events where guys aren't, a Brian Campbell. He's going to get rewarded in your model a little bit for being top 3, but he's got 1 round in this, right? So kind of just, there's no really right way to do it. Just kind of a feel, to be honest.
And the other option, just because people have asked us, if you do want to get rid of those guys in your model, again, that is where the minimum rounds number would come in. And so, like Ryan did, he expanded to 2 years, 3 years. And then if you don't want to include these guys in your model, which obviously it would skew the model if they're in there, you just set your minimum rounds and it will exclude those guys, not only from the view, but also from your model when you build it.
Yeah. So we'll do that for the sake of this. Again, you can dig deeper into some of these guys. Some guys have had a lot of success in the Korn Ferry. And when we have Nick Dunlaps of the world coming over, in turning pro, or in his case, turning pro after the event, but coming ready to go more so than ever before. And again, not that this is a Korn Ferry event, but like there's a skill to be had. If you can just get birdies and bunches, there's something to be said for having that as a baseline skill. These are the tracks for those guys. Like, they are used to scoring. We hit the pro-am element. We have easier pin positions because you can't have, 8 to 15 handicaps out here with tucked pins. So they make it a little bit easier so the pros can really take advantage of that as well. It's a benefit of, typically you have the pro-am element on a Wednesday. This is a pro-am element, in tournament play Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So a very, very different beast than what we typically see. So looking here, minimum 12 rounds, last 2 years, easy, very easy scoring conditions. JT Poston, top of the board from a strokes gained total average. Xander Burns right behind him. Thor Bjornsson, not a large sample, but has played well. Again, great putter. You can see Sanjay here as well. Eric Cole, Gracerman, Griffin, Jason Day, Davis Thompson, Cam Young, Tony Finau. So again, pretty interesting mix of guys who have played really well. Most of these guys are getting it done with some putting as well. Let's just see you ball striking in these easier setups as well. This is, again, you're going to see the team no putt at the very top here. Vegas, Glover, Gim, Kitayama, Spawn. Look at Spawn, flat to the field. Good for you. I take back the disparaging things I said about your putting here, JJ. He likes when he's playing on a municipal golf course and can get the putting going. Chris Kirk, Keith Mitchell, Mac Mesner's popped nicely in the model for me last week and didn't do anything with it, and he had a nice little week. Regretful decisions there. So again, lots of different ways to dig into this. Let's back out here. Let you guys build a model. We'll deep dive a couple of stats here versus building a full-on model. We'll build a model on the Tuesday show. Come back for subscribers. You can go into the View Expert rankings here. You'll be able to see Ron's model later in the week. You can see model already from Matt Vicenzi, Sports Illustrated, a couple of Andy Lack and his guy Steve over at Inside Sports Network, Inside Golf Podcast. Some of those models that are already up there. You can go into the View Expert tabs if you want to dig into those. Should we look at shorter golf courses too?
Yeah. So, that's kind of the thing, even when thinking about off the tee this week, it just doesn't really factor in, not only are they the shortest on tour, but none of them are really positional off the tee. Like, we would think of Harbor Town or Colonial. So it's really hard to even find correlated courses because they are short, but there's just, other than the stadium course where there is some water trouble off the tee, there just is really not much danger. We have this rough that's, an inch and a half and just not really a threat at all. So I still do think looking at just short and very short, because you're not going to blast away with driver on every hole, even though you could. But yeah, I think just trying to grasp onto some of these characteristics, I definitely think short should be in there.
Good call. I mean, a lot of bunkering for sure, but really outside of what was that 16, the like San Andreas bunker or whatever they have, that's like 25 feet deep. I mean, these guys are so good from the bunkers nowadays. Like, it's just not a hazard for a lot of these guys, which is crazy. But we're taking a look at, all right, this is same sample, last 2 years, minimum 12 rounds on short and very short golf courses. Top of the board, really. Xander, JT, Eric Cole, Patrick Cantley, Sunjay, Wyndham Clark, Denny, Harmon, Gracerman, Day, Burns. Again, basically, it's all your guys that are basically, stroke above tour average in those scenarios. Tee to green. Let's see if anyone jumps out that's punished for putting. Siwoo jumps into that mix there a little bit. Chris Kirk into that mix. Tone looking a little bit better in that, which makes sense. Kevin Yu, nice showing here last year. I think T3. He's again a guy that can pop here on easier scoring conditions. Putter is a problem. Obviously, you can see down here. So, a lot of common names. I think also let's look at the inverse. I didn't do this on the other ones, but smaller sample. Your Kisner, big week for Kiz. He's got some TGL in pocket. Been calling some golf. He'll be teeing it up this week. Sneds, Mullinex, Bill Haas, Toasty. This is the bottom of the board in terms of short to very short golf courses. Jake Knapp loses some edge here with keeping the driver in the bag a little bit more or not being able to grip it and rip it as much. So wild to see some, I don't know. I never know when Davis Riley is going to play really well, but I feel like he can just go win golf tournaments sometimes and you're never going to statistically model well. Taylor Moore is like that, where it's like Taylor Moore is not going to model well almost ever, but I don't know, 5-6 times a year he's going to be in contention at the top. Those guys are really, really tough to pinpoint. They are not model friendly at all. Nick Dunlap, same thing. I mean, 21-year-old kid is going to be fairly inconsistent, but obviously the ceiling is pretty massive. Zalatoris, I mean, this is a Zalatoris thing. I thought we were going to get into at Sony or at Kapalua. We just don't typically like Zalatoris when it's a birdie fest, but I don't know. We'll see what happens there. Definitely
he's got some decent results here too. So I think he's got 3 top 30s. Okay. I don't know. Maybe gain some weight. Maybe we have a new Zalatoris who can also play really good on easy courses.
Yeah, we'll see for sure. But yeah, I think it's also important to look at the opposite end of this as well. So some similar names that jumped out here. Anything else from a like a modeling standpoint that you think is a must as like a core build for you this week?
Yeah, I think we definitely need to look at the scoring stats.
For sure.
You know, I think, birdie or better percentage. And, you could take straight birdie or better percentage, but what I'll even do is, we already have like the easy scoring theme. So I'll literally put it on easy scoring and easy, very easy. Maybe even, you could throw average if you want more sample. I don't know if you need to this week, and then just, look at your birdie or better percentage. And some people don't think about this, but bogey avoidance is what, if you're having bogeys on these easy courses, that's what kills you. Maybe even more than not making enough birdies, because you can't be losing holes to the field here. So I think looking at bogey avoidance as well, when we're looking at kind of the easy scoring, I think though that matters for sure.
Yeah, it's a good call. I mean, like you said, there's not a ton of missed fairway penalty, though. A lot of bunkering. Like you said, not a ton of ways for you to hurt yourself. But what happened? I killed my conditions. Didn't apply it. Very easy scoring. Let's look at the birdie rates. Yeah, but it's a good call. You can't be losing strokes to the field, and in this instance, sometimes par is that, but also, bogeys definitely are a killer. All right, overall, again, really small sample for Cantley, which makes sense. Not playing a ton of very easy scoring conditions over the last couple of years. Birdie or better rate in those situations, though. Cantley, top in the field. Sanjay, Jason Day, Cam Young, Tony Finau, Sam Burns, Wyndham Clark, JT Poston, Thor again, smallest sample of the bunch, but can putt really well. Sepp, Kirk, Grayson, Cole. Again, a lot of commonalities through the top of the list we're looking at here as well. Cam Davis, bigger sample size than a lot of guys. You can see here, Hadwin, Hostler. Those are some names we haven't seen. You called out the course history for Hadwin, which I think is interesting. I think it's a great way to start this week. It's just scoring. And let's look at bogey avoidance. Who's keeping the big numbers off? This is the opposite. Guys that aren't keeping the big numbers off. Toasty, hot and cold. Day not making a lot of bogeys. Just obviously still world-class putter. Xander Burns, Cantley, Cooch, Cam Young, Glover, which is interesting considering his putting can be a problem at times. Harmon, Siwoo, Wyndham. The postman again. So yeah, great place to start here. What do we have in terms of eagle distribution here? Do we have, do we need to be eagling some of these par fives?
I think now that you mention it, that's something where, you have very easy par fives. That might be another angle to look at that. Maybe some people aren't, instead of just looking at par five scoring, look at that eagle percentage. So, you see a guy like Meisner, Davis Thompson up there. Davis Thompson is just a par five giant. And so that's one of the reasons why, he was not a good fit last week at Sony, where you have only 2 par fives, but, I think this is just a great week for him to just score. And here's another thing, like just to the depth of the rabbit hole is, so the par threes at the stadium course are three of the par threes are the toughest on the course. They're actually, if you look compared to PGA average, they're actually in the average to difficult category. So another thing you could do is you could just go, we have a section where you could go easy par fours and easy par fives, and you're kind of taking the par threes out. And then on the flip side, you can just isolate par three scoring. And so I don't think a lot of people are going to look at that this week, but that could be a possible edge to just look at par three efficiency, specifically birdie or better percentage. Like these are some of the tougher holes, especially at the Pete Dye Stadium course. And so, kind of get a little bit of an edge there, looking at, and you could change those filters to easy. Just 2 different angles, so you look at the par 4 and the par 5, like you're looking at now. And then on the flip side, just look at par 3 scoring and see, who has who's kind of popping in birdie or better percentage on these, maybe somewhat tougher par 3s compared to the other types of holes.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like you said, Sanjay, always somewhat in the mix. Here, never really threatening the top of the board per se, but never out of it. Best par 4 birdie or better percentage the last 2 years on easier conditions here, 4s and 5s. See again, Day, Ricky. Good for you. Small sample. Postman, Cole, Chesson Hadley, Harry Hall, Cam Davis, Hostler again. Matt Hughes pops in, so just looking for names that we don't see often. There's Toasty. Good for you. Can't keep the big numbers off the card, it seems like, but can make some par 4 birds. Let's look at par 5s in this sample as well, because we're sampling out for it. Yeah, this is again just any filtering through, trying to find any edge, any name that pops in a couple of different things that can separate here. Again, when you bring in birdies and bunches like this, I think it just creates more high variance, and is again a great week to stay away from some chalk and DFS. Poston again, great sample. Rico, good for Rico. Has played some decent golf as of late. Siwoo, Cam Davis, Cam Young, Lee Hodges, more Davis Thompson, as you called out, par 5s. Chan Kim, Norman, big off the tee, so that makes sense too. Again, a lot of length in here. Length of great putters for the most part. Sepp.
And you notice you don't see a lot of the bigger names here, and so again, with these par 5s being so easy, this is why I think we have some of these longer shots kind of rising up the board, because the par 5s are so easy. They're not having to contend with difficult scoring, and like some of the other top players are better equipped to handle. And so,
Yep.
Everybody can birdie. Like 72% par 5 birdie or better is just crazy, but it just shows you, if you're hitting the green, if you're getting around the green, you're getting yourself eagle chances. Pretty much gimme birdies.
I mean, this is one of the bigger samples too for Poston. I mean, that's bonkers. Yeah. All right. It's a good call out too. I like that too. Again, you want to make sure that you're careful with your sample. You don't want to get a bunch of guys in the teens, sub 20 rounds, but it's definitely good ways to mess around with this too, is to just kind of look at some of these things.
And like, so you put it on par 4 and 5 easy as well, but you could also just look at this by taking those off. So basically you're looking at scoring conditions in general that are easy. And so that would increase your sample size as well. So there's just so many ways you could look at the rabbit hole here and then try to find an edge somewhere.
Yeah. That's a good call. And again, putting, is obviously, would you say because of, the pin placements and the way things are done here, you're probably easier to gain putting than a typical track?
The Pete Dye course has some slope to the greens, but again, you have to remember these are resort courses, and so you got these amateurs playing, so these are intentionally, easy courses, easy greens, and so that's why, it pretty much evolves into a putting contest every year. As John Rahm was famous for noting.
Famous for noting. And then last year, when he was doing his, kind of woe is me, I hate driving by Scottsdale, and I want to be playing that event. He did mention like he misses playing the Amex, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah.
All right. All right. What do we? So when we look at I want to look at putting length. It's typically not something I do, but again, like I think you got to be making putts here. The putting ranges this week. Let's look at those scoring ranges too. When you're looking at, say, 5 to 15, see who's making putts in those ranges. Any filtering you would want to do in this?
Yeah, I think so. So we have our first instance of Poa Trivialis this year on the greens, and so basically this is not West Coast Poa where it's bumpy. This is actually about the smoothest surface you could have. If you think bent grass, it's even smoother than bent grass. It's basically like a velvet carpet. As my guy Brian Mull, former PGA Tour caddy who's caddied so many events out here, he tells me all the time. So these are pretty much the easiest, smoothest surfaces you could have, and so we do only site that has Poa Trivialis. So again, other sites are going to have Poa. It's not Poa or Bermuda, actually, I think, for some of these. But again, the Bermuda is dormant, and so these are completely overseeded with Poa Trivialis. So even the rough, again, it's Bermuda rough, but the Bermudas, as you'll see it on TV, famous for the brown Bermuda that surrounds kind of the fairways and greens. That's all dormant. So you got kind of a little bit of rye. It's again really low cut, 1.5 inches. But yeah, Poa Trivialis, I don't think you necessarily have to look at. I mean, you could look at it in general, and then I always like to also just look at 5 to 15, like you are here too, maybe with Poa, and then take the Poa Triv out and just see if there's any difference. But you can get creative again with this.
Yep. No, it's a good call. I mean, it's a decent sample. I mean, but I backed out for 3 years. Again, your best putters up here. Valimaki, Montgomery, Kiz, Todd, Harmon, Kazire, Xander. I mean, you see Xander up here. It's always terrifying. Just such a good putter. We back out to 10 to 15. You know, be kind to yourself, people. And you guys go play. Don't play enough to expect to make all the 10 to 15 footers. Look at these guys. These guys are pros. These guys are awesome putters. They're making less than 50% of their 10 to 15 footers. Montgomery again, Cooch, Cam Young, Carson Young, Harry Higgs, Sam Ryder, Chandler Phillips, Finau. That's surprising. It's a range he can make, but you can see, you know, a lot of red otherwise for Finau. Same thing. Cam Young. This is like, I guess, the Cam Young zone. You know, whereas making a significantly lower rate than the field and a 3 to 5 range, but this is a make section for him. Posting 2. This is interesting. Posting 5 to 10, not great, but you back him out a little bit solid percentage. Siwoo, good for you. Jake Knapp, Molinari, Wyndham Clark, see great putting across the board. If we just take Poa Triv off, we'll just look in general. I'll look at strokes gained putting real quick while we have this filter on, and just get the sense of who's, you know, the best Poa putters in the field, and then we'll take a look at, you know, who's just making putts in that range too. Because I do think, to Ron's point, because this is such a smooth, user-friendly putting service, I think you'll see probably less split benefits to certain guys. Kuchar, Ryder, Montgomery, Griffin, Denny, Harmon, Burns, Todd, Xander, Billy Ho at the top. No real surprising names. Some of the guys, nice course history or played well here in the past, popping nicely too. Don't hate that.
Yeah, and then the only other thing I would say, like to really focus on, obviously you're going to have, with shorter courses, you're going to have a lot kind of shorter wedge play here, short irons. So again, we have so many options you can do it. You know, we have from the fairway, but you know, we have the fairway broken up into 25-yard buckets, you know, so you could look at that. I think we have 50 to 125, which is a perfect range for this week, since I think that's about 8-9% more than tour average from that range. And again, we also have a lot of shots from 250 plus, which again, we are the only site where, you know, you can also look at from 250 plus, which, you know, we can look at after this as well. But yeah, I would add, you know, I would just go those first 3, you know, 50, 75, all the way up to 125. I think those are the 3 important ones for this week.
Yeah, small sample for some of these guys. Back this out, get a little bit of a bigger feature for these guys. Jackson Suber, nice showing this past week. Matt McCarty's he won the Black Desert and won a bunch in the Corn Ferry last year. You can see his sample there is pretty small. Highsmith, Chandler Phillips, great wedge player. I really just, you know, you can see solid irons across the board. Skins, Knapp, JT, you know, again, this is a really large sample, so we're getting some older JT stuff. He's benefiting from that as well. Vajegas, Siwoo, Glover, Ben Martin, Mac Mesner again, nice little, I mean, this is all really good. Just kind of a random outlier here. Davis Thompson, the wedges in his hand, that's 50 to 75. You back out a little bit more to 75 to 100. See if there's some commonalities. It's just always so fascinating to me to see specific. This guy gets give him a gap wedge and he's cooking. Give him his lob wedge and he's struggling. It's very interesting to see. I like to see a lot of the green throughout. Just kind of feel more like you can kind of trust that baseline skill. Postman kind of speaks to that. Michael Kim, Dunlap, Horschel, more consistent green throughout.
Yeah, and just go to the overall real quick, and let's look at. And again, if you don't want to get that granular, if you want it in a little wider buckets, because I know there is some overlap in those ranges. And so with this, we have it spread out, 50 to 100, 150. And so you can look at it this way as well. And like I said, again, there is, I think, 5% more from 250 plus. So you have that option as well to kind of see who can kind of separate here. And look at that first name. Oh, there we go. I didn't even know he was in the field. I forgot about him.
Blocky's in the field. All right. Semikawa, that's showing up well. Fishburne, Chandler Phillips again. It's a lot of green throughout here for Phillips. Justin Suh, Lucas Glover, Chan Kim, Cantley, Hardy. I guess it's a really, really big sample for some of these guys. Again, you feel like it's a baseline skill. Berger, Norman, Bramlett. So you see some guys with some length in here as well, which makes sense.
I think if you're focusing on one category, like you're just looking at 250 plus, I think it almost helps you to have better sample because, like you said, it is like a skill that they build up over time. Whereas
sure.
if you're looking at, if you want to see, okay, who's hot, who's the hottest with their approach game right now, for that I would just look at general strokes gain approach. But I think when you're really narrowing it down to by ranges, I think if you even a lot of sample size, I think the more is actually better in this case.
Yep, for sure. And I like to, especially as the season goes on, these guys start playing more events. I think some sort of hybrid look, establishing what their baseline is, and then you could take a look at variations of short-term form, whether it's the last 12 rounds played, last 24 rounds played. You put them in the rabbit hole, and when you run the model and weigh it, you could just decide how much you want to weigh it. But I think looking at both long and short-term form is a good way to look at it. If we could look at average here, we can get a sense of what the actual number is for some of these guys. See if there's any gaps. So no massive gaps here. 200 plus you can dial in as well, but as Ron said, 250 plus is really where you're going for the green. Thor again, Wilson Furr, Lucas Glover, Chandler Phillips. So again, some guys you're seeing fairly often, which is interesting too. All right.
Just look really quick. Go look at. I just want to see the par 3. Go to efficiency and just run birdie or better percentage. And again, I think this is an underrated thing that not a lot of people are going to look at this week. But again, with the par 4s and 5 so easy, maybe slightly more difficult par 3s.
Should we mess around with any? Do you need any conditions on that?
No, I think just look at straight par 3 since these are not as easy as the other types of holes on this course. At least all 3 of these courses actually. So,
all right, I've made 2 bets, Ron. It was Thor and Matt McCarty.
Yeah, they're popping in a lot of these. So yeah.
The samples for both guys are super duper small, but they were Thor. I had 150. McCarty was 200. Before I dug into anything else, I just thought these are, guys that can score, a lot of talent, young guys, kind of in the Nick Dunlap model mode for sure. So I like to see that confirmation bias.
And Gracerman and Cole, which I hadn't even looked at this yet, but again, those are 2 guys that I've been considering. So that's also interesting to note. Yep.
They're in the 40 range or so. So you can see that. Tom Kim, Highsmith, Nick Hardy, Echeverria just continues to play really, really good golf. Griot, Zal likes those par 3s. Like to see that. So again, you can start to see a gap. You got to mess around with this too. The Gracerman sample is awesome, right? He's near the top, but his sample is, doubling, tripling some of these guys. So you feel really good about that being really strong. Same thing, Cole, Tom Kim, I'd like to see that here. So Mesner again. Definitely a good week to go off the board. I would understand why someone would want to go at the top, maybe mix one of the shots at the top, again, strong, Xander, Cantley, Finau, Sanjay, Burns. There's a solid top tier. But then going down the board here, I think is a spot where you can find some decent value, some guys that are probably a little bit deeper maybe than they should be. So I like it. I haven't built a model, so I didn't want to use it and do it all here first. We'll do it on our own and have that for subscribers. But I think we've led you to some names here this morning that I think can help you out. So anything else to show the people before we wrap?
No, I think we're good. It's going to be a fun week if you like scoring. Again, you're going to probably have a lot of guys who, if you get off to a slow start this week, I mean, you're pretty much slamming your trunk Friday, and if you
Saturday,
it's one of
there's the
or Saturday.
round
That's
count.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. I forgot about that. Yeah, so I forgot. Yeah, 3 rounds. But yeah, there'll be some players who do not make the cut, who you expect to, who just cannot go low enough, whether it's because of how they're playing or they're just not good fits for this type of event. So,
and the fun, I don't play a lot of Showdown. I know you play a lot of Showdown. I mean, you play way more DFS than I do anyway, but a decent Showdown week, right? Because with the 3-course rotation, they're all easy, but the stadium course is harder than the other 2, right? So even though it is easier than a normal tour event, just kind of crossing those guys out from a Showdown standpoint, I think is probably advantageous way to approach it. So this is a week that I play Showdown.
Oh yeah, and perfect weather. Like it's typically perfect weather, very light wind, so you don't have to worry about that this week. Everything I've looked at so far pretty much shows how it's always been, very, very light, calm winds.
Love it. All right. Come over and hang out with us. Play around the rabbit hole all by yourself. Betspertsgolf.com. Again, you can, with the subscription, not just get the rabbit hole, but you get all the tools on the site. You get to read Ron's preview, all the content that we have on the site, all the other tools. Get in the Discord. You get those Nick Taylor's pinged notifications on a Monday morning. It's definitely something you want to take advantage of. I know Ron's already taken a couple of shots there as well. So check it out. Betspertsgolf.com. Get the annual. It's a full year. If you have any questions, you want to check it out for a month, DM us on Twitter at BetspertsGolf. Probably find a discount for you to check out the first month for a little bit off. Get your feet wet and play around with it. Again, Discord community is great. Those guys are sweating, finding edges anywhere you can. I know they jammed like 3-1 yesterday for that tournament to go to a playoff, which they had done 5 of 7 years, and people found some soft numbers on that too. So not just us, the great community out there putting good stuff out there for subscribers as well. So check it out. Come back, subscribe before you take off. You can find this show wherever you listen to podcasts. Betsperts Golf on YouTube. Andy and I will be back and do the betting show. We'll build a model tomorrow. So for Ron, I'm Ryan. We'll see you all next time. Thanks, everyone.